All right, let's dive right into a story about a massive geopolitical power play. We're going to unpack a narrative that's centered on the world's most critical oil choke point, the Strait of Hormuz, and one single move that, according to the source we're examining, completely reshaped the entire global energy map. So, the source we're looking at kicks things off with this really dramatic claim. It frames a super complex international event as a simple but devastatingly effective Uno reverse card. I mean, what exactly was this move that would make someone use such a bold comparison?
And that's the real question, isn't it? The source argues that a single strategic decision wasn't just about targeting Iran. No, it was aimed at a much, much bigger rival, and it completely reset how energy flows around the globe. So, let's unpack exactly how this story unfolds.
Okay, so to really get what this reverse card is all about, we have to look at the setup. According to this narrative, the main event didn't start with a bang. It was actually triggered by a very public and what looked like a failed attempt at peace.
Now, the source claims these failed talks were no accident. Far from it. They were a deliberate part of the strategy. It even brings up Sun Tzu's Art of War, suggesting that you had to make this public, good-faith effort at peace first. It was the necessary step to make the next move seem not just justified, but totally inevitable.
So, with that diplomatic stage all set, the action shifts to the geographical heart of the global energy economy. And this is where, according to the source, the script got completely flipped.
You know, it's pretty much impossible to overstate just how important the Strait of Hormuz is. It's a massive bottleneck for a huge percentage of the world's oil. For decades, the ultimate threat has always been that Iran can shut it down and cripple the global economy. And that right there is the key point that sets up this whole story. And boom, this is the Uno reverse. The source says that instead of waiting for Iran to threaten to close the strait, the U.S. announced its own blockade. But this one specifically targeted ships going to and from Iranian ports, while keeping the waterway open for everyone else. The threat was literally turned back on its user.
So what was the immediate effect of this huge announcement? Well, according to the source, the global reaction was incredibly fast, super dramatic, and you could actually see it happen.
The narrative points to this one single powerful image that it says went viral. It's an image that supposedly captured this economic reset in real time. A map from a marine tracking website showing what looks like an almost instantaneous coordinated U-turn by the world's oil tankers.
And the source doesn't describe some slow, gradual shift. No, the claim is that these massive supertankers, carrying millions of barrels of oil, literally pulled U-turns in the middle of the ocean to change their destination to the U.S. Gulf Coast.
And this, right here, is meant to illustrate the economic impact. To back up this story of a global pivot, the source offers this data point. U.S. refineries suddenly running at nearly maximum capacity. Why? To handle an unprecedented surge in demand, as the world supposedly switched its energy supplier overnight.
But this is where the narrative really builds. The source argues this whole maneuver wasn't really about Iran at all. Iran was just the lever. The ultimate target, it claims, was America's primary geopolitical rival.
So here's the crucial point laid out plain and simple. The public-facing move was about stopping Iran's oil exports, but the real strategic goal, according to this narrative, was to cut off China's access to the cheap, subsidized Iranian crude that it relied on to fuel its economy.
And here's the vulnerability that the source points to. With nearly half of its oil imports flowing through Hormuz, China was seriously exposed. The argument is that this one move forced China to start competing on the open market for more expensive American oil, effectively wiping out its cheap energy advantage in one fell swoop.
So what are these supposed long-term consequences of this single action? Well, the source presents a summary of what it calls a permanent rerouting of the world's energy flows.
This slide basically sums up the source's entire argument. It's painting a picture of a new world order. The U.S. is now positioned as the world's indispensable emergency gas station. China's economic engine gets throttled, the U.S. dollar, tied to oil, is strengthened, and Iran's biggest threat, closing the strait, is made totally useless because the new system just flows around it, not through it.
This quote really just captures the whole essence of the narrative being presented here. It frames the entire event not as a reaction, but as a pre-planned trap where Iran's greatest strength was cleverly turned into the very instrument of its own strategic irrelevance. At the end of the day, this source puts forward a really powerful and frankly provocative story about a single move that it claims redrew the lines of global power. The argument is that the very geography of the oil trade was fundamentally and permanently altered. And that just leaves us with the big question. If this narrative holds, what does this new energy map mean for the future?